Plant medicines have been hailed as powerful tools for transformation. They have been used for spiritual growth, tremendous awakenings, emotional healings, but what if they're just another addiction in disguise? Now, for those of us that have dealt with addiction, the question is this really a pathway to freedom? Or is this another dangerous detour? My name is Christopher Armstrong, and I am an addiction transformation coach, hypnotherapist, and certified master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming. And I use not medicine, but mental and emotional tools, as well as spiritual tools, to help my clients to break free from their addictions and transform their lives so that they can start to live more authentically and fulfill their true life's purpose. Now, many people are diving headfirst into plant medicine ceremonies, me included. In the past, I have sat with ayahuasca, peyote, San Pedro cactus, bufo DMT, changa DMT, magic mushrooms, yopo, which was a really weird one, and blown up through the nose, and that was just wild. And the list goes on. But the thing is that a lot of us are seeking transformation, and I think a lot of us are seeking shortcuts for healing. No surprise considering the world that we grow up in. Well, what if these substances, while being gateways to tremendous healing that can open doors to incredible insights, emotional breakthroughs, higher dimensions, what if they also carry a risk of dependency? What if, when not infused intentionally, without a proper plan for integration, without proper guidance and support, what if they might help you to take one step forward and 2 or 3 or 5 steps back? My question that I'm posing is, are we using these sacred tools, these ancient techniques, for genuine transformation? Or are we escaping the very life that we're trying to heal from? Now, it's important for us to ask this question because it has become very popular with social media, YouTube. There's so many videos out there about people. Just type in ayahuasca and you'll get hundreds, if not thousands, of people sharing their experience of their ayahuasca journey. People of pretty much any age, any ethnicity, any background that have felt the call to go to maybe the jungles of Peru, maybe even their local ayahuasquero, their local shaman, to take a few doses and to go through this process of healing. Now, I've done this too. I want you to know that I have been through all of these situations myself, so I'm speaking from experience. But if we don't understand the power and also the necessary respect that goes along with utilizing these tools, we're just going to get caught hitting the shortcut button, hitting the easy button over and over again, like so many of us in the Western world have done. It's also incredibly important to talk about this because there is a process. There is a process that we must go through. It can be broken down into 3 simple steps. But really, if we don't follow this process, we're just getting high. Now, I walked away from Guatemala after an ayahuasca ceremony, followed by 3 days later, an LSD journey. It was at a party. It's hard to say it was a journey. I took some LSD at a party with some friends because I was hitting FOMO. I didn't want to be the only one that wasn't high. And it left me in a state of trauma, a state of psychedelic-induced psychosis. And so if you're not careful with these substances, you actually can lose your mind. You can get set back, potentially months, years, decades of healing, or just get lost completely. There's plenty of stories out there about people who have lost their mind on these psychedelics. Now, I'm not saying that that's the average experience. And I'm also saying it is possible. It's also incredibly important to speak about this because when it comes down to it, healing can be done many, many ways. Recovery from post-traumatic stress disorder, complex trauma, specific extreme types of trauma, from years of neglect and abuse, these things can be healed. You can recover. especially those of you with addiction, I am proof that you can transform your addiction. And in fact, I believe that our addiction sometimes is training us to become far more powerful, far stronger than we would have been had we not done it. There is a purpose to all this. And I want you to know that it's important to question the use of psychedelics. So let's talk first about what these psychedelics are, these plant medicines. Now, first off, psychedelics, well, that was a term that came up in the 50s or so. The ideas that we're connecting with our psyche, it really was an understanding by psychologists and kind of educated people that were starting to experiment with this in the 50s, in the 60s, before psychedelics became illegal, at least in the United States. I'm pretty sure in other places as well. The other term, plant medicines, is, let's say, a term more honoring their nature, as they are from the plant kingdom, most of them. There's also fungi, and there's some reptilian, amphibian, mammalian ones, but these are actually used as medicines. They can be used to heal, to cure, to help transformations. And in fact, that's what they've been used for thousands of years, if not longer. This can include psilocybin mushrooms, 5-MeO-DMT, even things like cannabis. There's a debate about whether cannabis is psychedelic in nature, but trust me, it can have its medicinal effect. Now, each one of these things can be powerfully transformational for healing. In fact, that's what they were used for. Under specific guidance, usually in a ceremonial setting, with simple or even extremely complex protocol, a guide would support people to go through a process of inner reflection, allowing the intelligence of these plant medicines to support us in seeing aspects about ourselves that we had not been able to see, that we were not able to see, or that we just needed an extra jetpack boost to be able to break through with. Now, these were quite helpful for me for a period of time. I leaned heavily on them when I was going through a process of self-improvement, eventually turning into a spiritual awakening. In 2017, I separated from my wife. I was healing an addiction to cocaine. I was overusing cannabis. I was drinking a lot because I didn't know how to cope properly with the challenges I was experiencing. Nobody taught me. I grew up in a family lacking emotional intelligence, plain and simple. My school sure as hell didn't teach me. I didn't learn it in college. So when I started to connect with psychedelics, which actually was years before I used them as healing instruments, more for party recreation, eventually I realized that they had a tremendous healing power to them. I could see higher perspectives. I could see from almost my soul's perspective. I could basically shut down my brain and zoom out and look at my life in a different lens. It would help me with emotional release, and it'll even allow me to have insights that I had never accessed before. But over time, I wasn't realizing that I wasn't actually healing at a core level. I wasn't taking the insights that I was getting and converting them into action. I wasn't taking the breakthroughs and the emotional releases and then creating new habits, right? I was seeing them. I was going through an intense kind of sticking a dynamite into my emotional baggage, blowing it up. But then because I had no process going forward, I essentially unconsciously started picking up all the pieces that I had just blown apart and then put them back together and ended up using the same patterns over and over again. So let's talk about the risks and the rewards, because don't get me wrong, I am not fully negative on this. I used to serve psychedelic substances. It was a part of the work that I would do with my clients. Now I don't. And that's because I've had to heal my relationship with this. So let's talk about some of the rewards. Number one, it's that higher perspective. Being able to see your life, yourself, from your soul's point of view, from higher consciousness point of view, or from just a different perspective, a different lens. It basically takes our default mode network, the normal systems that are running in our brain. Like when you start up your computer, it's all the stuff that's happening in the background to keep everything functioning properly. It takes that and it just blasts it apart. We know that through science, that it takes that system, kind of the construct of your personality, your ego, who you believe yourself to be, who you know yourself to be at an unconscious and conscious level, and it just steps it aside. It says, hey, you know what? You're going to be in the backseat for this journey. It can allow us to have greater access to energy, to our soul, our spirit, to wisdom, to information. People have had experiences connecting with spirits from other dimensions, experiencing connections with ancestors, past lives, parallel lives. There's so many ways that we can use these substances to just break out of what we thought of life. And let's say on the risk side of things, there's also the risk that blasting that system apart is shocking to the system. Nature loves balance. Nature will always create balance. You can see it in anything around you, right? So if we go through a moment where we go through the extreme high, we get the neurotransmitters, the dopamine, the serotonin, all these things pumping to a high degree. Eventually, we're going to have to come back to our normal level. However, in order to come back to our normal level, we don't just slowly move down to our normal state of being. Because nature creates a balance, that high is met with an equivalent low, which means that after the ceremony, after the substance, or anybody who's ever worked with or played with recreational drugs knows that there's a pretty nasty drop. There's a pretty nasty crash. The hangover, the depression afterwards, people that use ecstasy or cocaine, wow, the come down is hard. And then we get to go back to a state of our average way of being, our average neurotransmitter levels, our average experience of the world. So one of the risks is that you have to go through this wave. And I have been through it many times. So many that, in fact, in order to avoid the wave, I would usually just use more of the substance. That's the old hair of the dog method, which a lot of alcohol drinkers probably know a lot about. Now, the thing is, there's also a risk to our physical, mental, emotional body, and even our energetic body. And for those of you that aren't super woo-woo and into energy, cool, no big deal. But we are understanding through quantum physics that everything is energy. It's all energy first, and matter is simply a reflection of energy. So our energetic body, which we now have the capacity to sense and measure through electronic and scientific devices, our energetic body basically gets blasted out of our physical body. And the structures that keep it into place are essentially wiped out, disassembled, or kind of taken offline, which means that you're putting yourself at risk. Now, from the spiritual lens, you're putting yourself at risk from attack. You're essentially blowing the roof off of your house in order to be able to see the sun more clearly and allow the sun to illuminate you more clearly. And also that means that thieves can come in through the roof. That means that debris and insects and birds and animals can come in, and that puts you at great risk. Also, you gotta put the roof back on. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't do. And I'll talk in a minute about the integration process and the value of working with a guide, because they can help to mitigate all of these risks while amplifying and supporting the full integration of all the rewards. So what are some of the other rewards? A lot of these things, these plant medicines, actually are very healing for the body, for the energetic system. People go through a purging process when they're using ayahuasca and other substances, because the medicine is going into their system, it has an intelligence, and it's saying, no. This stuff doesn't belong anymore. We need to get it out. So that can be fantastic. And also, if somebody's not ready for that, or if their system hasn't been properly prepared through a specific diet, some sort of training, some sort of physical preparation, or even the mental and emotional preparation to get ready for it, it can be very traumatic. I have witnessed people go through traumatic experiences in the healing session. I personally have gone through traumatic experiences walking out of a session feeling worse than when I went in. There's a lot to prepare for. Now, in the ancient times, there's a lot of talk about ancient medicines. You can talk about some of the old philosophers. They would share about these different types of brews, these elixirs, that they would go off to a specific place and drink. I'm thinking specifically some of like the Greeks and the Romans. They would have these concoctions, and you would have to prepare in order to drink these things, sometimes years. Before you could go and drink them, your mentor, your teacher had to declare you ready to go. You theoretically had to have enough of an understanding about your body, your energy, the flow of your energy, your mind, your emotions, in order to be ready to sit with this stuff. Now, that's a whole lot different than popping some LSD or taking some mushrooms at a concert festival. Wouldn't you agree? Now, I'm not saying don't use these things. What I am encouraging you to do is recognize that this is like strapping on a jetpack in order to accelerate your healing. And go watch a YouTube video of somebody strapping on a jetpack. You can go fast, you can go high, and you can be really powerful. And you can crash and burn really intensely. If you don't have the proper training, preparation, mindset, intention, and guidance, these things will probably set you up for a tremendously difficult experience, one that might leave you worse off than when you went in. So I want to talk about what a guide is for and what integration is all about. Now, a guide is somebody who's there to support you in the space, to help you, to support you as you are in the journey. Think of it, it's kind of like not only just your designated driver, the person who's going to take over the heavy machinery when you're unable to, when you're incapacitated. But if you get stuck in a thought loop, if you get stuck in a negative thought spiral, that medicine can take you so far down and you might have difficulty coming out. The guide is there to make sure that you have all the resources that you need and all the support that you need to ensure that none of that happens. The guide is also there to help prepare you and make sure that you have all the tools and resources necessary to get you ready. And then this person may be able to hold the space. Now, this is like if you go into a therapist's office, which probably happens a lot less, thanks to and also because of tele appointments. When you go into a therapist's office, they have a container, they have a space. Their energy is dominant in that room. They know what they're doing. They have experience, hopefully, and they're guiding you and directing you through a process, a specific process using tools, techniques, and the wisdom and knowledge they have gained over the years. The same thing happens with a psychedelic guide. This person creates an energetic space, a physical space. The ceremonial aspect is incredibly important. In fact, our unconscious mind, because it speaks through symbols and metaphors, actually needs ceremony and ritual in order to properly close and complete healing. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be burning candles, burning incense, and with a big roaring fire in the middle of the space. Ritual and ceremony can happen in many, many different ways, but it is critical for the healing of your mind. Now, that person holds the space, which theoretically, if you're blasting the roof off of your house, is really important because they can help make sure that nothing's going to come in while you're open and vulnerable. And afterwards, they help to close that space. They help you to reflect upon what happened, share what insights you had, and even prompt you to ask questions so that you can dive in deeper. They close that space, make sure that you're safe, have you walking away. But the ceremony doesn't stop there. The process of healing doesn't stop with the ceremony. It must continue. And that's where integration comes into play. Now, integration is, I see it, the most important part and the most challenging part of a plant medicine experience. It's the most challenging because you don't have the specific container that was created, and potentially you don't have the guide with you 24/7. So flashes of the experience, previous memories, even residual effects of the medicines can happen over the coming days, weeks, and months. And you may not have that guide right there as a resource. So you need to be resourced in order for you to be able to properly and effectively navigate this. Now, this is where the integration process or integration plan happens. When I stopped serving 5-MeO-DMT, a very powerful substance that comes from a toad, that comes from the lands that I grew up in, that I was born in, that I felt tremendously connected to. And my God, I can't even tell you how much I believe that I was meant to be a curandero, a bufo shaman. But at first I would serve people and I was focusing on a little bit on the preparation and then on the ceremonial container. And then they would walk out and I didn't have a whole lot for them to do. Eventually I said, I'm not going to hold space unless I can follow up with them and make sure that they have a process to engage in over the coming months so that they can take what they have learned and make it a part of their life. Again, blow up the old baggage, the old ways of being, the old processes, the old habits, but fill it with something new. Create new visions, create new healthy habits, new neural pathways, so that you're not tempted to, or you won't unconsciously go pick up the old stuff because you just need something, right? It'd be like if I had a car and it was auto-driving, self-driving car, and it had its GPS coordinates to take me to my destination. If I took away the destination and didn't give it a new direction to move in, didn't have new goals, a new place to land, it would probably either just park and stop, or there might be a panic that happens, a confusion in the system. And if you don't give it new information, I bet you that automated system is probably going to take your old coordinates and just say, I got to go somewhere. So either you're going to be stuck at a dead stop or you're going back to where you were originally going in the old pathways that don't work for you anymore. So there's 4 steps to any process of change. Step 1 is to release the emotional baggage, dig up and get rid of the limiting beliefs, the old constructs, the old ideas, the trauma, the pain, all that stuff, which, yes, psychedelics can help with, especially with a guide. But then we have to do step 2. And step 2 is all about creating a compelling vision of your future. You need to update the GPS coordinates. You need to put in new directions. Having new goals, having a new vision of yourself, and then that vision will give you an understanding of what goals that turn into actions, that turn into strategies. And then those action steps are going to be your 3rd step, which is to just take action. You know, if you quit smoking, you got to do the first thing is to get rid of all your cigarettes. Get rid of all your cigarettes. Maybe not your lighters. You might still want to light a candle, but anything that would create an environment where you might be tempted or utilize those old patterns, you just need to get rid of it. So that's an action step, right? But the 4th is also really important, which is to stay focused. Focus on what you want and not on what you don't want. And these 2 are very difficult for people. And especially without a full integration process and a full coaching process or some sort of a longer container of healing. Most people come out of a psychedelic experience with a lot of revelation, feeling empty, probably after having tasted the beauty of higher consciousness, the beauty of their soul, the beauty of the power of the cosmic and one universal heart. They come back to this world, this reality, and look around. Certainly what happened to me. And I thought, why am I here? This place is ugly. Nobody talks to each other. People just drive around and walk around each other and they ignore each other. There's no community. There's trash everywhere. And then the cycles of negative thinking can take that person to a deep state of depression. For me, that turned into, I don't know that relapsing is the word, but escaping again. I started to escape again into the substances. There was one year, it was actually in 2023, when I started working with Bufo 5-MeO-DMT from the Colorado River Toad. I pretty sure that I sat in a ceremony with a guide probably 15 times. That's a lot. Most people, one's enough. But I was learning, I was training to become one who would serve this. And then I started serving myself because I thought, well, I need to know how this works. I need to know it at a deeper level. I need to become familiar with my tools. And one of my teachers said, you need to know how to serve yourself before you serve someone else, because you have to help yourself go through a process of death, which is essentially what the blasting away of these systems in your brain is, so that you can learn how to be reborn and make sure that you can hold space for someone to do the same. Cool. I estimate, I don't know, I didn't count, but I probably served myself another 45 or more times in the next 6 months. So we're talking about, on average, more than once a week. And it wasn't because I wasn't getting the messages. I was getting the messages, but I wasn't doing anything with them. I wasn't integrating them. I wasn't turning them into new visions, new goals, new action steps. I wasn't taking action on the visions that I saw, and I was just escaping the reality that I had created for myself. So that is the biggest risk, is that getting high, coming and crashing down, and instead of honoring the process and knowing how to be prepared for this, we just shoot ourselves back up again in order to avoid the low. And then we get stuck in a cycle of overuse over and over again. Look, here's how you need to do this if you're going to do it, which I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I don't think most people need to use plant medicines. In fact, I get better results with my clients and with myself using words, mental visualization, hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, tools and techniques that are tried and tested and don't create this intense up and down roller coaster, that don't cause tremendous pain to the body. And also, because of their nature, working on the mental and emotional body, they actually help heal the body as well. So if you're going to do this, there's really 4 steps to the plant medicine process. Number 1, feel the call, hear the call. I have a rule that I need to have 3 very clear messages from my reality that it's time to sit with the plant medicine. I'm also not doing that right now because A, I haven't heard those messages, and B, I have a commitment to myself to continue being substance free for a total of 2 years, which continues me through the end of this year. Now, the second step after you've heard the call, after you're very sure that this is the right process, is preparation. Now, this is where you can work with a guide. This is where you can understand, is there a specific diet that I need to engage in? Do I need to cut out certain things, certain people from my life, certain substances? What do I need to do to train and prepare myself? Is it mental, physical? Is it emotional? Are there prompts and journaling questions that I can use to get clear on what my actual intention is, and use that process to set the stage? The third piece is to have the ceremony itself. And personally, I'm not going to take any psychedelics again in the future without a guide. Otherwise, I'm just getting high for having fun, just for fun's sake. So having a guide is incredibly important because they help with the set and setting. This is making sure your intentions are good and clear, and that you're prepped, and then that the setting, the ceremony, the space, the energy, all that stuff is set properly. That guide will help and support you as you go through the process. And I would really research your guides and also trust your intuition, because there's a lot of people serving medicine out there. A lot. They've been called to the path. And not all of them are trained properly. Not all of them have the awareness of how to hold space. Not all of them know what they are doing when they open up these new gateways. And the fourth step is integration. And integration is not a day of journaling afterwards. Integration can take months, sometimes even years. I'm still getting messages from my ayahuasca journey. That was the step before me losing my head. And it's been 4 years now. And in that time, I did not have a proper integration plan. Yeah, we shared a little bit in the sharing circle afterwards, but I didn't even speak truthfully because I was ashamed about what I experienced and what I saw. And I felt particularly traumatized by the holders of the space because I felt silenced. I felt like I was too much. So some of my old trauma came back up. So if you can follow these 4 steps for the process itself and understand the 4 steps for change, release the baggage, which of course is why you would be doing the ceremony in the first place, have a clear and compelling vision, including your goals, take action, and then focus on what you want and not on what you don't want. It's a positive mindset. Then you will actually be able to create tremendous change in your life. Now, look, I want to leave you with a couple of reflections. Imagine instead of getting high, using these plant medicines as sacred allies, tools that are here to help you uncover your truth, not as crutches, escaping reality, escaping the challenges of your life for a few hours, a few days. But understand that if you work with these and you honor a process, you work with a guide and you do all of your intention setting and your preparation, you're going to have a better experience. And these allies, which are very intelligent, they will support you in your process. They will make it easier, make it better, and smoother. Now, I know this because when I went through a neurolinguistic programming breakthrough session, which is an 8 to 10 hour process utilizing all these tools and techniques where we dig up and get all of your baggage out of your unconscious mind, release it, and prepare you to start creating your goals and your vision. When I did that right before a medicine journey, and when I guided a few of my clients to do it right before their medicine journey, their experience was so much less challenging and painful, and so much more insightful and loving. I believe it was like they showed up to the ceremony having done their homework, and the medicine intelligence, the spirit of these allies, was like, hey, cool. You want to go see the cool stuff? Because you've already gotten a lot of the hard work out of the way. Now, I don't think you need the plant medicine. The breakthrough session can be just enough for 98% of people. However, if you're going to dive into this, just ask yourself, do I have a plan? Do I have a plan for integration? And am I ready to face what might be revealed? Am I ready to do the work afterwards to make sure that I integrate this and become a different version of myself rather than just beating myself up and then going back to the old plans? Look, I want to start a conversation around this. I want to hear your story about plant medicines. Really good, really challenging, and everything in between. I'm not here to judge anyone for their use of plant medicines. My only desire is to support you in recognizing that there's a better way to use these plant medicines. There's a much better way. If you're going, just like I don't like to use antibiotics, I don't like to use pharmaceutical drugs, and there have been times in my life where that was the way to heal. It was the best, most efficient, and most effective with what I had at the time. And there's also a way to make sure that the after effects, the side effects, and the risks involved in taking those substances wouldn't make me worse in the process of healing. So share your comments below. What do you think? Is it a cure? Is it an addiction? Is it a risk? What was the substance that helped you the most? What was the one that changed you the most? What was the one that challenged you the most? Do you have any experiences with guides, or did you do it by yourself, and was there one better than the other? I've also heard, by the way, that with the wrong guide, some people have had worse experiences than doing it by themselves. I don't recommend doing any of these things by yourself, but it just really reinforces the importance of having a proper guide. So share your information below. And if you find yourself in one of these patterns, if you're still stuck reaching out to the medicines, or if that's cannabis, if that's psychedelics, or even if that's alcohol, wine, food, if you're stuck in an addictive cycle, I want you to reach out to me. You can connect with me at risewithchristopher.com. You can also get on my wait list, and I have a 90-day process that will take you from addiction to freedom, massively transforming your relationship with whatever it is that you're stuck in, getting rid of all of these programs and this baggage without the pain of a medicine journey. And that process is launching later this month. And I want you to be able to get first crack at the best pricing and to get the first availability, because I won't have the space to work with everybody right away. So go to risewithchristopher.com. You can find the information in the links below and get on my wait list, and also jump on my newsletter, because I'm going to be sharing a lot of this information with you and helping you to understand that there is tremendous potential in some of these processes. And also, it is really important to mitigate the risks by handling this with respect, love, and care. Most importantly, handling yourself with respect, love, and care. Learn from my mistakes and do it the easier way. Once again, my name is Christopher Armstrong, addiction transformation coach, and I look forward to supporting you in the future.